welcome to the exposition of the Secret Doctrine by me, Tina Heels. Now let's continue with our discussion. So I explained to you in the last video how there have been races that are not known to the modern anthropologist. There have been people that no explanation for them and who they were, or why did they perform certain rituals. In fact, even about the Mesoamericans, we really don't know much. Every day, as technology progresses, we learn more and more, but we don't know much, okay? And lots of races have disappeared. To this day, the famous traveler adds that all along their way on the river Darya, they heard legends about 23 towns buried ages ago by the shifting sands of the deserts. The same tradition exists on the Lobnor and in the oasis of Keria. The traces of such civilizations and these and like traditions give us a right to credit other legendary lore warranted by well-educated and learned natives of India and Mongolia. When they speak of immense libraries reclaimed from the sand, together with various reliquae of ancient magic lore, which have all been safely stowed away. To recapitulate, the secret doctrine was the universally diffused religion of the ancient and prehistoric world. Proofs of its diffusion, authentic roots of its history, a complete chain of documents showing its character and presence in every land, together with the teachings of all its great adepts, exist to this day in the secret crypts of libraries belonging to the occult fraternity. The statement is rendered more credible by a consideration of the following facts. The tradition of the thousands of ancient parchments saved when the Alexandrian library was destroyed. The thousands of Sanskrit works which disappeared in India in the reign of Akbar. The universal tradition in China and Japan that the true old texts with the commentaries which alone make them incomprehensible, amounting to many thousands of volumes, have long passed out of the reach of profane hands. The disappearance of the vast sacred and occult literature of Babylon, the loss of those keys which alone could solve the 1,000 riddles of the Egyptian hieroglyphic records, the tradition in India that the real secret commentaries which alone make the Vedas intelligible, though no longer visible to profane eyes, still remain for the initiate, hidden in secret caves and crypts, and an identical belief among the Buddhists with regard to their sacred books. The occultists assert that all these exist, safe from Western spoliating hands, to reappear in some more enlightened age, for which, in words of the late Swami Dayanand Saraswati, the Mlechas will have to wait. The Mlechas being the Westerners, because, as I said, the missionaries in their overzealous acts really mistranslated and hacked away at the original meaning of these heathen and pagan sects and systems and traditions. For it is not the fault of the initiates that these documents are now lost to the profane, nor was their policy dictated by selfishness or any desire to monopolize the life-giving sacred role. There were portions of the secret science that for incalculable ages had to remain concealed from the profane gaze. But this was because to impart to the unprepared multitude secrets of such tremendous importance was equivalent to giving a child a lighted candle in a powder magazine. The answer to a question which has frequently arisen in the minds of the students when meeting with statements such as this may be outlined here. We can understand, they say, the necessity for concealing from the herd such secrets as the vril. You know about the Vril Society. If you don't, they are Western occultist magicians from Bavaria, Germany, and the Vril ladies had long hair and they believed in the ether and a life force. So check out the Vril Society. There's some good YouTube videos on them. Or the rock destroying force discovered by J.W. Keeley of Philadelphia. But we cannot understand how any danger could arise from the revelation of such a purely philosophical doctrine, as example, the evolution of the planetary chains. The danger was this: doctrines such as the planetary chain or the seven races at once give a clue to the sevenfold nature of man. For each principle is correlated to a plane, a planet, and a race. And the human principles are on every plane correlated to sevenfold occult forces. Those of the higher planes being of tremendous power, so that any septenary division at once gives a clue to tremendous occult powers. 7 colors of the rainbow, 7 days in a week, the 7 chakras, the abuse of which could cause incalculable evil to humanity. A clue which is perhaps no clue to the present generation, especially the Westerners, protected as they are by their very blindness and ignorant materialistic disbelief in the occult. But a clue which would nevertheless have been very real in the early centuries of the Christian era to people fully convinced of the reality of occultism and entering a cycle of degradation which made them ripe for abuse of occult powers and sorcery of the worst description. The documents were concealed. It is true, but the knowledge itself and its actual existence has never been made a secret of by the hierophants of the temple, wherein mysteries have ever been made a discipline and stimulus to virtue. This is very old news and was repeatedly made known by the great adepts from Pythagoras and Plato down to the Neoplatonists. It was the new religion of the Nazarenes that wrought a change for the worse in the policy of centuries. Moreover, there is a well-known fact, a very curious one, corroborated to the writer by a reverend gentleman attached for years to a Russian embassy, namely that there are several documents in the St. Petersburg Imperial Libraries to show that even so late as during the days of when Freemasonry and secret societies of mystics flourished unimpeded in Russia, that is, at the end of the last and the beginning of the present century, more than one Russian mystic traveled to Tibet via the Ural Mountains in search of knowledge and initiation in the unknown crypts of Central Asia. And more than one returned years later with a rich store of such information as could never have been given him anywhere in Europe. Several cases could be cited and well-known names brought forth, but for the fact that such publicity might annoy the surviving relatives of the said late initiates, let anybody look over the annals and history of Freemasonry in the archives of the Russian metropolis, and he will assure himself of the fact stated. So a lot of Russian people were coming into India and Tibet. Now, I don't know if you know this, but there is a huge Russian presence in the Kumbh Mela. Okay, including the Freemasons who perform a ritual at the Kumbh Mela, do their really interesting mudras and their ceremonial, wearing their ceremonial garb. Very, very interesting that the Freemasons are present in invoking the energy of the Kumbh Mela, and there is a very, very prominent influence of Russian sadhus and mystics and occultists in the Kumbh Mela. I mean, very, very interesting. Of course, you know about Blavatsky and Rorik and so many others, honestly. Now, this is a corroboration of that which has been stated many times before, and unfortunately too indiscreetly. Instead of benefiting humanity, the virulent changes of deliberate invention and imposture with the purpose thrown at those who assert it, but a truthful, if even a little known fact, have only generated bad karma for the slanderers. But now the mischief is done and truth shall no longer be denied, whatever the consequences. Is it a new religion, we are asked? By no means. It is not a religion, nor is its philosophy new. For as already stated, it is as old as thinking man. Its tenets are now published for the first time, but have been cautiously given out to and taught by more than one European initiate, especially by the late Ragon. More than one great scholar has stated that there never was a religion founded, whether Aryan, Semitic, or Turanian, who had invented a new religion or revealed a new truth. These founders were all transmitters, not original teachers. They were the authors of new forms and interpretations, while the truths upon which the latter were based were as old as mankind. Selecting one or more of these great verities, actualities visible only to the eye of the real sage and seer, out of the many orally revealed to man in the beginning, preserved and perpetuated in the aditya of the temples through initiation, during the mysteries and by personal transmission, they revealed these truths to the masses. Thus every nation received in its turn some of the said truths under the veil of its own local and special symbolism, which as time went on developed into a more or less philosophical cultus, a pantheon in mythical disguise. Therefore is Confucius a very ancient legislator in historical chronology, though a very modern sage in the world's history, known by Dr. Legge, who calls him emphatically a transmitter, not a maker, as saying, I only hand on, I cannot create new things. I believe in the ancients and therefore I love them. So this is very important to understand, that every system, every thought, every mechanism that we have is not new. It's not something that was original. It comes from that one universal wisdom. It comes from that one universal truth. Okay, so this is even Confucius, even Buddha, even Jesus, even Muhammad. They all took from the main tradition and they interpreted it, gave it local flavoring. You know, how Chinese is different in China, different in India, because we add local flavoring and the symbolism of that particular place, and you add on to it, and you add on to it, and then every nation has its own unique understanding of this great ancient tradition. Okay, so that's something Theosophy tries to teach us, this great ancient tradition from whence all religion has been birthed. Okay, so understand this, Aditya of the temples to initiation during the mysteries, and by personal transmission they reveal these truths to the masses. Thus every nation received in its turn some of the said truths. Some of the said truths. So Kabbalistic system has some truth, Vedic system some truth, Gnostic some truth, Buddhist some truth, Jain some truth. So every system has taken something and is holding on to some truth from there. Okay, and then of course under the veil of its own local and special symbolism. So the way somebody is brought up in India, their ideology, their social constructs going to be different to someone brought up in Iraq. So when somebody from India gets a piece of the truth, they interpret it with the lens of their own culture and the symbolism that's most pertinent to their understanding. So this is what happened. Everybody got something from that ancient wisdom tradition, everybody. And then they began the task of interpreting that for their population. Okay? So, this is beautiful. I only hand on. I cannot create new things. I believe in the ancients and therefore I love them. So, anybody who accuses Blavatsky or HPP of plagiarism, please read the introduction. She says that this is ancient knowledge, ancient wisdom. Okay, that I am handing out to you. The writer loves them too, HPB, and therefore believes in the ancients and the modernaires to their wisdom, and believing in both, she now transmits that which she has received and learned herself to all those who will accept it. As to those who may reject her testimony, I mean, who cares, right? No need to read that. You reject it, you reject it, okay? Here we have the first installment of the esoteric doctrines is based upon stanzas, which are records of a people unknown to ethnology. It is claimed that they are written in a tongue absent from the nomenclature of languages and dialects with which philology is acquainted. They are said to emanate from a source of occultism, repudiated by science, and finally they are offered through an agency incessantly discredited before the world by all those who hate unwelcome truths or have some special hobby of their own to defend. Therefore the rejection of these teachings may be expected and must be accepted beforehand. Okay? Oh my God. Sorry. So, no one styling himself a scholar in whatever department of exact science will be permitted to regard these teachings seriously. They will be derided and rejected a priori in this century, but only in this one. For in the 20th century of our era, scholars will begin to recognize that the secret doctrine has neither been invented nor exaggerated, but on the contrary, simply outlined, and finally, that its teachings antedate the Vedas. Have not the latter been derided, rejected, and called a modern forgery? Even so recently as 50 years ago, was not Sanskrit proclaiming at one point the progeny of a dialect derived from the Greek, according to Lempier and other scholars? About 1820, Professor Max Muller tells us, the sacred books of the Brahmins, of the Magians, and of the Buddhists were all but unknown. Their very existence was doubted, and there was not a single scholar who could have translated a line of the Veda, of the Zenda Vesta, or of the Buddhist Tripitaka. And now the Vedas are proved to be the work of the highest antiquity, whose preservation amounts almost to a marvel. How did the Vedas survive? The Vedas are so old, and the Vedas are actually from the Indus Valley civilization. Here you have a civilization which is so advanced, and there is no text that has been attributed to them. And here you have the Vedas. And forget the Aryan theory of people coming down from the Ural Mountains. That has been proven to be incorrect. The Vedas are from the Indus Valley civilization, and actually if you look at it, so much of what the secret doctrine has said is coming true. Consciousness creates reality. We live in a simulation. We'll get into much more of that. Please join me for the next segment. Signing off.